The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association, connecting Virginians to their government. We're so pleased to have Bill Howell, the Speaker of the House of Delegates, with us today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be back, Woody.
You know, if you look at the General Assembly website, one could get the mistaken impression that all you do is chair the Rules Committee.
Well, that's about all I do.
Tell us a little bit about your duties and responsibilities as Speaker, and I think you're the 54th Speaker of the House of Delegates.
Okay. I can't remember how many there have been before me, but I've been doing it for a little while now. The Speaker has a lot of responsibility. Everything from running the daily sessions, recognizing people and allowing them time to talk and trying to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to be heard. But some of the behind-the-scenes stuff is pretty important. I pick all the membership of the committees. I decide what committees everybody's going to be on. We have 15 standing committees. I also pick the chairman and the vice chairman of each committee. The other thing that takes a little bit of time, but it's significant, is the Speaker's office assigns all the bills to the standing committee that's going to hear them. And that assignment process takes a little while. I always make a couple of mistakes. I'll get memos from chairmen saying, hey, I don't think this bill should be in our committee. It ought to be somewhere else. And so we move it. But that is a very significant responsibility. I name who's going to be on the conference committees when a House and a Senate bill don't agree, and then we have a committee of conference to iron out the differences. And of course, the biggest one of those is the budget when that goes into conference, and I pick the conferees on our side for that. And there's some other things that have to sign all the bills before they go to the governor. And there's a lot of things that keep you busy. And it's probably a good thing I'm not on a lot of other committees where I'm having to run around from here to there. The Rules Committee is pretty important. I'm also chairman of what we call the Joint Rules Committee, which is the committee made up of members from the House Rules and Senate Rules, where we meet together to talk about joint issues, and keeps my day full.
Now, how arduous a task is that, especially at the beginning of the session, to go through all of those pre-filed bills and determine where they should go?
Well, pre-filing has been a big help because it spreads out the introduction of bills over a period of weeks rather than days. I have some help. The clerk comes down and goes through the bills with me, and then I have a couple of other members that'll come and talk about where they think the bills ought to go from their experience of sitting on the different committees. But it takes a while. It's because you do have. I don't read each bill thoroughly, but I have to read the summary and then dig into it if it looks complicated. And right now we're in the process of assigning Senate bills to committee. We've crossed over, so the Senate's finished all its work, and we should have it all by today that they've done. And we've been assigning it as they've passed over there and come over to us, to committees. And so our committees today will be able to start hearing Senate bills. In fact, we've already had a couple of Senate bills on the calendar, and we'll have a couple more today.
So you're about halfway through this 60-day session then?
Yeah, actually probably a little more than halfway, because in the House, since we have 100 members and they only have 40 in the Senate, we obviously have a lot more bills introduced. And so we've plowed through all of those, and now we'll go through what has come over to us from the Senate, but that won't be nearly as much. And so the big issue before us right now is making sure that when the budgets come out, we can reconcile them, the House and the Senate, and then send them to the Senate back to the governor and get his input.
Now, there were a number of House rule changes focused on transparency that were adopted at your request. Talk to us about those.
Well, transparency is a big issue. People want to know what's happening in their government, and we saw an opportunity to make a couple of changes that would improve the position a little bit. In the past, the budget would come from the conferees, and it would kind of come at the last minute, and the members really wouldn't have time to go through what's in the budget, what the changes were, and how they impact their district. And so now we're requiring that the budget be presented at least 48 hours before we have to vote on it. So members now will have 2 days to go over the budget changes that the conference committees have come up with. And then the other one we did, and this was really more just for expediency for us, but it locked out the public to an extent. Sometimes if there was a last minute change and a committee had to meet to refer a bill to another committee or to do something quickly, they would just meet at the chairman's desk on the floor of the House. And the problem was the public can't come in there. They could, and really couldn't even watch it on television because it was all huddled around the chairman's desk. So now we've said that you can't meet at the chairman's desk any longer. If it's a last minute thing, go downstairs to House Room 1 and have your meeting down there open to the public.
It's interesting because the General Assembly website, especially your body, has a wealth of information, and there's a way to become really informed, especially about committee meetings and their agenda now.
Yes, well, now the clerk's office really improved that before the session as well. And people, they can find out if they know how to use their computer. I'm not sure I would know how to do it, but the more savvy person, my grandkids, could find out exactly what time a subcommittee is meeting, where it's meeting, what's on the docket, those sort of issues. And I think that's very helpful to the public.
And of course, there's always those who want to go even further. There's this new Transparency Caucus that was formed by 2 freshman members, one on the Senate side, Amanda Chase, and one on the House side, Mark Levine.
Yeah.
How's that going?
I haven't heard from them yet. I'm sure they're going to come up with their list of requests. And like everything else in life, Woody, it's balancing. You can't have everything so open that we can't get anything done. But at the same token, we have to be transparent so the public has an idea of what's happening and has an opportunity to weigh in with their feelings on an issue.
Now, one of the issues that's been around for a while relates to the Virginia retirement system. Mm-hmm. If you can give us a little background on how we got, I won't say into trouble, but we borrowed money from that retirement fund a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. But now I know there's a commission that you are forming mm-hmm. To study how to reform the Virginia retirement system to make sure that the taxpayers and state employees are protected.
Right, that's exactly right. The Virginia Retirement Plan, which is run by something we call VRS, the Virginia Retirement System, covers all state workers. It also covers law enforcement, teachers, the judicial branch. There's several different funds within the big fund. And currently, they are not completely funded actuarially. There's not enough money in the pot today that if not another nickel was given, could take care of everybody that's entitled to something from the fund. And so that's a concern, and we want to bring that amount of unfundedness up. Now, one of the problems I think, with Virginia's plan is it's much like the Social Security plan that we all enjoy. In fact, it's not even as good at that in one sense. That is, it's what we call a defined benefit plan. And it says, the Virginia plan says, like Social Security, if you work for so many years and your average salary for the last 5 years was so much, you'll get a certain percentage of that for the rest of your life. And like Social Security, when Social Security was passed, there were, I'm going to say, 4 workers for every 1 person eligible for Social Security. Now those numbers have gone down dramatically. People are living longer, and the workforce hasn't grown proportionally. So as with Social Security, you've got a smaller base in Virginia paying benefits for a longer period of time for people. I really think the direction, and this is just me, and I'm not sure this is what the commission will come up with, but I really think one of the things we need to look at is should we transition to what's known as a defined contribution plan? Almost everybody in the private sector today has a defined contribution plan of one sort or another.
That's like a 401k?
Like a 401k or an IRA. It's where your employer, and you can match it in many cases, makes a contribution to your plan, in effect, and that's invested in mutual funds or whatever. And that's the end of his liability. He doesn't have a liability for the rest of your life. I think that over the long term, if you're in a defined contribution plan for a long period of time, the benefits will be even greater than in a defined benefit plan, just because over the long term, the stock market is going to go up. There's ups and downs, but if you look at the long trend, it's always up. In addition, one of the advantages of a defined contribution plan is it's portable. If I come and work for the state for 10 years and then leave to go somewhere else, under the present system, I don't get much from whatever's been done for retirement for me, because there's not a pot there of money that it has my name on it. If I have a defined contribution plan, my benefits are in a silo that's just for me, and when I leave, I get to take that fund with me to my next thing, and I can add to it then. So the portability, the opportunity to take your employment, your retirement fund with you as you change jobs, I think is significant. 20, 30 years ago, people would come to work for the state or work for IBM or Exxon or whomever, and they'd stay there for 30, 40 years. You'd come get a job and you'd stay there forever. Today, for whatever reason, people are switching from jobs to jobs. It's with this new generation coming along, it's very unlikely to think that someone's going to come work for the state for 35 or 40 years. And so one of the things I think people look at, this is the other thing that the commission's going to look at, besides just the retirement plan itself. We're going to look at the benefits that the people coming to work for the state have in comparison with the private sector. Right now, Woody, we've got a disproportionate amount of our employees are probably 50 years or older and going to retire in the next couple of years. And we have a disproportionately low number of people 21 to 25 or 30 working for the state. So that's something we've got to address, because one day we won't have anybody working for us. They will have all retired. And so that's the other part of it we're going to look at in this commission. What can we do to make sure that we're attracting good people to work for the state? And part of that is the benefits, and part of the benefits is the retirement plan. So I think it all ties in together.
Now, who will be members of this commission?
Well, it's a pretty big commission. I think there's about 20 people on it. The Speaker gets to appoint people to it. The Senate Rules Committee gets to appoint people. There'll be ex officio members from the governor's cabinet, people like the Secretary of Finance, and we'll have outside experts in it too. So we'll be able, besides legislators, we'll have outside citizen appointees.
Great. Talk to us about transportation. How is the transportation funding mechanism working? And more importantly, I-66 inside the Beltway has been in the news, and there's been a really, really good compromise reached.
Yeah, I think there has been. I think, Woody, if I look back a couple of years, I think Virginia's really done as good a job on our transportation infrastructure as any state in the union. Now, I know when people are tied up in traffic, they're going to say, what the heck's Howell talking about? But we've taken some long-term steps to ensure that we're going to have the cash, the money, the opportunity to build the infrastructure that we need, I believe. And you remember in 2013, we changed the way we raise our money for transportation. We kind of went away from a gasoline tax to a sales tax. And that gives us a more dynamic, a more growing source of revenue. In addition, we raised the tax so that we're going to get more money. We get about $1 billion more a year now for transportation than we did prior to 2013. And we need the money. There's no question about that. Then the next year, in 2014, we passed a piece of legislation that's known as HB 2, House Bill 2, that analyzes the different projects that people are coming forward with for transportation, and determines through a very sophisticated metric system which particular project is going to do the most to reduce congestion, improve safety, and then it's got some other criteria in there as well. And so in the past, where perhaps some projects were decided more by political means, now we're going to be selecting the projects that are going to do the most to reduce congestion and improve safety. And I think that's huge. And I don't know of any other state in the union that's doing that. Then last year we passed a piece of legislation that kind of cut down the number of pots, if you will, of money that the Commonwealth Transportation Board controlled. and centralize it and put a lot more in the home district rather than in Richmond. So I'm in the Fredericksburg Transportation District in Stafford County, and we get now more money. We get about twice as much money from the state for our local projects as we used to. And then this year, Chris Jones has a bill that kind of straightens out a lot of the concerns people had about tolling, about the tolls. We're going to see more and more use of tolling, public-private partnerships in the future, I believe, for transportation infrastructure. You're aware because you don't live that far from the 95 express lanes, and there's still some grumbling about them, but they've done a great job, I think, of taking people, giving them the opportunity to get back home on their commute a lot more quickly. The 495 express lanes, I think, have been a big success. Both of those are powered by tolls, and the tolls are what they call variable pricing. They go up or down depending on the congestion on the road. And if you're coming on the 95 express lanes during rush hour, you're going to have to pay a couple of more than a couple of bucks. But it's your choice. If you don't want to do that, you can go in the regular lanes. The and HOV3 is still they don't pay tolls, so that still helps. With I-66, there was a lot of concern because initially the governor's office had talked about setting up tolls inside the Beltway on 66, and it really wasn't going to build any more capacity. It was going to use that money for transit, for bike paths, things like that. And a lot of people, particularly those that lived outside the Beltway and would have to pay that toll coming in, were concerned because it wasn't going to do much to reduce congestion. Arlington County had always been kind of resistant about building that third lane on 66 going each way inside the Beltway. The governor's office, working with, I think, the leadership in the House and Senate, was able to work with Arlington County. They've basically agreed to not to oppose a plan where they're going to build, it's just 4 miles inside the Beltway where they can build these lanes because of all the office buildings and everything that are right on the edge of 66. But there is 4 miles that will take them significantly into Arlington County, and I think take a lot of traffic off of 66, or make the 66 traffic go better. Simultaneously, they're going to begin construction, I hope. They're getting ready to get the bids, again from a public-private partnership arrangement, for putting in extra toll lanes outside the Beltway, all the way out to Haymarket, I believe. And all of this is being done through the state doesn't have enough money to do it on its own. The state is going to, by the way, build out of the Commonwealth Transportation Fund the 4 lanes inside, the 4 miles inside the Beltway. But outside the Beltway will be done through a public-private partnership arrangement. And so you'll have extra lanes on 66. You'll have to pay a toll if you want to use them, but it's a choice. If you don't want to use them, you can continue to use the regular lanes. And I think it was a good compromise, and I think it's going to do a lot. That's a huge area of congestion. I-66 has been brutal for people coming in from particularly western Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William counties, and I think this will help somewhat.
Now, those public-private partnerships really reduce the risk to the taxpayers.
Oh yes, no question about that. The private sector takes on all the responsibility, not only for building the roads, but maintaining the roads, and they want them running well because that's where they get their money. They want tolls.
And I think we've learned a lot from what happened in Hampton Roads situation.
We have. That really wasn't a public-private partnership as much as it was what they call a design build, but it was mishandled. There's no question about that. And that was one of the reasons that Chris Jones came forward with this legislation, to make sure that we're just going to toll roads basically where there's going to be expansion built with the toll money.
And of course, transportation is critical to the needs of the entire Commonwealth, especially the Port of Virginia.
Oh, there's no question about that. The transportation infrastructure can make or break the economy, and we've come a long ways, as I mentioned, in the last 5 years, towards making sure that we have the funding and the procedures necessary to have a good transportation network.
And I think there's a budget request based upon bonding for about $350 million to improve the infrastructure at the Port of Virginia.
Yes, and that's going through. That's going ahead. I think both the House and the Senate. It was in the governor's budget, and I think both the House and the Senate are in agreement that it needs to be done. The Port of Virginia is a tremendous potential, or is a tremendous asset for the Commonwealth, and I think that with these super tankers that we're going to be seeing now, you just can't imagine the size and the capacity, but because they're expanding the Panama Canal, they're going to have these huge tankers coming through, and there's not many places on the eastern seaboard where they can port. New York, Savannah, some of these other ports are madly digging, trying to get down deep enough. Virginia has a natural port that can handle them. But what we don't have is the infrastructure to take that cargo off the ship and then put it on the trains or trucks to be delivered. And the $350 million is going to revolutionize our ports down there. We'll have a world-class port down there.
Let's discuss for a few minutes another compromise that was reached on concealed carry permits and reciprocity with other states. It was initiated with communication from the Attorney General, Mark Herring. That caused a lot of controversy, but it shows how compromises can be reached here in Richmond.
That's a great point, Woody. The Attorney General issued an order basically canceling the reciprocity agreements that Virginia had with 25 other states, so that people in Virginia who had legal concealed weapon carry permits could no longer take that concealed weapon into other states. And this was a real concern for people that traveled into Tennessee or North Carolina, people that worked maybe in Tennessee or North Carolina. They would be violating the law of that state under the Attorney General's edict if they carried their concealed weapon into that state. And we looked at doing some legislation to correct that, but then the governor, working with Bryce Reeves and Scott Lingenfelter and some people within our caucus, Todd Gilbert, came up with a compromise where, in exchange for really expanding the concealed weapon reciprocity to any state in the country that will go into, that has a concealed weapon reciprocity statute, and in exchange, the House and the Senate agreed to work on this, what they call the gun show loophole, where if you go to a gun show that is not run by people that are licensed, there may not be a background check done. We've changed the law so that there will be a state policeman at every gun show, and it's a voluntary thing. If the seller or the buyer wants to have a background check, that the policeman will be there to do the instant background check. In addition, there was some legislation dealing with protective orders, and how if a person has what they call a permanent protective order. It's interesting to me they call it a permanent protective order, but it's only for 2 years against them. Not only can they, under present law, they can't buy or transport a gun, but now they can't possess one, and so they have to, if they have guns in their house, they have to turn them over to the sheriff. And that was, I think, a very important bill that we passed as well. So it was a good example of both sides giving up a little something, but working together to get something that is beneficial to more people in the Commonwealth.
There's some other legislation attempting to encourage localities to cooperate on a regional level. It's called Go Virginia.
Right.
Why is that significant?
I think it's hugely significant. Woody, the economic map that we have in Virginia right now for economic development is out of date. In Virginia, we've always done well attracting new business because of our proximity to Washington, D.C., and the military influence in Virginia. And we have done quite well with our business growth, doing government consulting, having people that work for the federal government or the military. Well, through the combination of sequestration and also government uncertainty, federal government uncertainty, we've found in Virginia that our economy is not coming back from the recession. A lot of people talk about how the economy is on the rise, but the last year we have these figures, in 2014, the economic growth in Virginia was 48th in the nation. We're just not growing. And it's because of this government cutback. It's over $9 billion that we have lost from federal government sources over the past 5 years. And if you talk to people in Fairfax or Loudoun or Prince William, they're seeing commercial vacancy rates as high as they've seen them in years. And so something needs to be done to change our plan. We can't continue just to rely on the federal government or the military. And I think this Go Virginia is a good part of changing the plan. And what it basically is a plan where areas, localities will get together and work together to try and attract business. And there'll be incentives for doing that. And there'll be grant money for working together to bring new types of businesses to Virginia. In addition, I think we need to do a better job of attracting new types of businesses to Virginia. Cybersecurity is something everybody talks about. Well, it's a great opportunity for us because we have people that are trained in that. We've got a lot of people coming out of the military that have that ability, and we just need to do a better job of harnessing that infrastructure and working together to get new ideas and new ways of developing our business. So I think Go Virginia is a very strong part of that, and I think it's going to help change the path. It's not going to happen quickly. It's like turning around an ocean liner, because we've been going down this path for so many years, just relying on the federal government and the military, and I don't think we can anymore.
We've got about 1.5 minutes left, but I wanted you to comment on the importance and significance of the 3V program, Virginia Values Veterans.
Well, as I just mentioned, we have a lot of people. I think we've got something like 800,000 veterans in Virginia. And a lot of them are well-trained, well qualified to do a lot of different civilian jobs. And the issue is putting them together, matching them up with what they can do. Chris Stolley had a bill in this year that kind of highlights what I think we need to do. Chris Stolley is a physician, and he's passed legislation that's going to allow somebody that comes out of the military as a corpsman or a medic with medical experience to be able to bypass a lot of the early training that they might have to go through to be a nurse or a EMT person. And so I think if we can do things like that, we need to do what we can to hold on to these people that are coming out of the service that are so well qualified and great citizens of Virginia.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us, Speaker Bill Howell.
Thank you, Woody. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.